Hello and welcome back to the St Teresa Community podcast with me, Connor O'Rourke. I'm absolutely delighted that you have chosen to join us today on our fourth episode of this mini series. We are 4 episodes down, and this will be our last one before we go off on half term for a week. So we have chosen a topic for this episode, which is going to be very, very relevant in the next month. And today we're going to be discussing the month of service for Downside School, which has been initiated by the St Teresa Community. And I am very, very happy to be introducing our two latest guests from the community. We have Lily. Hello, Lily.
Hello.
Hello, Lily. And we also have Judetta with us today. Hello, Judetta.
Hi, Connor.
Hello, Judetta. It is absolutely great to have you both on here. And I'm sure whoever is listening is very much looking forward to hearing two new voices from the many voices of the community. As I said, this week we are going to be looking at the topic of the month of service, which is coming up for our school community. And the month of service was created by the St. Teresa community. And it was based on the passage from Matthew, which reads, "And the king will answer them, 'Truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these who are members of my family, you did it to me.'" And this was actually a passage that we looked at in this week's Lectio Divina within the community. And many things arose, many echoes were heard, which were truly impactful, I think, in this week, and had led to a lot of inspiration for the content of this episode. And a lot of it relates back to the month of service that we're about to carry out at Downside. But before we get started on what the month of service is going to be all about, we thought it'd be really important to kind of dissect what service means to us as young Catholics and Christians. So, Judessa, let's introduce you for the first time today. What does service mean to you, Judessa?
Well, for me, service is probably just really offering a part of yourself in order to benefit others and just basically giving selfless acts towards other people to really make a difference within their lives through it could be anything from like giving a smile or
Mm,
organizing a grand charity event, but
mm,
really it's just giving the best of yourself to make everyone else around you happier.
mm. Thanks a million for that, Judessa. That covers a lot of what service means to a lot of people. So thank you for sharing that. Lily, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I completely agree with Judetta, and I think service is an act of humility that places others before, like yourself, and I think of it as an honor and a privilege, and also a blessing,
Mm.
and something that brings us all together and gives a massive sense of community.
Mm. Yeah, perfect. I think the community aspect of it there is really really telling in this week's work within the Lexia within the community and the upcoming initiative of the month of service. And I love what you said there, Lily, about it being very personal to each individual, which I think is really important. And I think it's important to note that service means something different to everybody. In that it is completely unique to you and it takes no true form. So, you know, Judetta's talking about a selfless act of a smile, perhaps, and Lily could be talking about something greater meaning for the community, such as an event. Even though a smile offered in the street is hugely beneficial to society. Amazing. So, in terms of looking towards our faith now, and you know, bearing in mind that Christ calls all of us to serve, Judessa, is there any pieces of scripture that calls you to serve?
Yes, I found one from John chapter 3, verse 18, which states, "Let us not love in word or talk, but in deed and truth."
Mm,
And for me, that really like caused me to just serve through my actions and to just do more than just serving through giving kind words, but to really like display service through just generally acting in order to benefit others and in order to help others make the most out of their lives. And also, it sort of reminds me of Christ and how service is basically mimicking what Jesus calls us to do and what as Jesus lived his whole life based on service.
Mm.
And he calls us to do the same through every action and every thought that we can think of.
Mm. No, thanks for that, Giuseppe. In terms of today's climate, do you find any challenge from those words? Do you find it perhaps challenging in this month of February? In the midst of another lockdown, is there some kind of difficulty that you face in trying to practice those words?
Yes, definitely, especially in the midst of lockdown, it could be really hard to even be kind towards yourself
Mm,
and to really stay positive and to motivate yourself to do something beneficial.
mm,
So, uh, for me, it is actually rather difficult to show selfless actions, especially when during these times when it's difficult and we may not exactly know what is expected of us or what we need to do.
mm.
Yeah.
No, I completely can relate to that, Giuseppe. Lily, sorry. Is there anything else that you might have there, or could you relate to anything that Giuseppe was sharing there about the difficulty perhaps in living out those words today?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a really tough time for everyone, but I think just having just the reminder of this and the reminder of being in a community, it really does helps you be kind to yourself. Like as Judetta said, it is really hard in these times. Like there's lots of things going on, there's lots of pressure around us, but I think this is the one thing that I think pulls us all together, and it makes you like reevaluate and rethink about, well, yourself really and your values and your morals as well.
Mm.
So definitely.
Yeah, I think those two sentiments there are really really apt to how a lot of people are thinking right now, and I think it pulls perfectly into what Giuseppe was saying there about how right now can because we're not seeing a lot of other people outside our own bubbles. We're kind of remembering that we have to be kind to ourselves, and that does relate back to the first priority for us as young Catholics is to serve God. So in terms of what Matthew was saying, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. That kind of relates back to what Jesus was saying there, I think, and how in a time of opportunity right now to be thinking about our own faith, and even you two being on this podcast is a perfect example of that in terms of serving God, through the words and the voice that you're offering about your faith, which is so encouraging for me as a fellow young Catholic and a Christian to be able to listen to you two already share your opinions on that, which is great. And the second priority is to serve others, which relates immediately back to you must love your neighbour as yourself, which is almost what Lily was saying about the community, um, which brings us perfectly um, into almost planned into a discussion about the founder. Well, the basis for the inspiration, you could say, for the community in St Teresa of Calcutta. Now, St Teresa encapsulates these priorities of serving God and serving others perfectly. And in terms of what she gives our community, it gives us a lot, not just the face, but almost the belief to continue on the work that we're doing. So I think in terms of your opinion on this, Lily. Is there anything, from being in the community now for coming up on a year, which I know is scary, but coming up on a year of being in the community, it, would you be able to offer any experiences on how St. Teresa's perhaps inspired you through your work from the community?
Well, she's very obviously a leader and unique and authentic and, well, loads and loads of things. But recently at Christmas, um, Sally and I did Christmas
Hmm.
starfish boxes, which we sent out to the more disadvantaged people and like the people who didn't have maybe as much as we did at Christmas. And I think it's just the giving back to community. It really makes you feel good and it also makes them feel good and it makes you feel valued and just the feeling of giving back to someone. It's really inspiring.
Mm.
So yeah, I think that was really good.
Yeah, perfect. I think it's really cool that you've mentioned the starfish boxes there again, because the being able to, well, having the opportunity to even relate back to charitable deeds that you've done, and events that you've run, and initiated and inspired. I think it's something really cool, and it's a great example of divine charity that does occur within the community.
Yeah.
And as Pope Francis says, grace is free. So being able to spread that, and being able to have the opportunity to celebrate charity, and it is said that divine charity is there to be shared. So you doing that act of kindness over Christmas is a perfect example of that, and being able to carry that through, is brilliant. And take this, by the way, Lily, as another way of offering charity, in offering your voice. So super. Judessa. Um, Now we're going to come on to what Judessa has done recently for the community, and this kind of ties right in. So if you were thinking that Judessa has an incredible knowledge of history about Saint Teresa, then you would be correct. But she she has got a little bit of history about Saint Teresa with her that she'd like to share on perhaps why she is chosen as the saint for our community to be based upon.
Yes, so Saint Teresa basically devoted her whole life towards service and giving herself to others. She really focused mostly on improving the lives of others so that they may also be able to do the same
Mm,
through serving the poor and in honor of God's glory. And so for 45 years, she was looking after poor, sick, orphan children and those who were dying and living in very deprived, poor areas.
mm,
And sh basically, she used that as motivation to really reorganize the poor world and how, as well as, sorry.
That's all right. Don't worry. Is it
um,
is lockdown?
yes.
Is it as it yeah? So as a perfect example of what we're living through. Perseverance, Judetta. Well done. Super. Was there something else you wanted to add there? Sorry, Judetta.
Um, yeah, so I was basically just about to say, oh yeah, that she just really wanted to help the poor so that they may also be able to use that spiritual service to help
Mm,
others and then to really spread like a domino effect of
mm.
service to flourish all around the world.
Amazing. Thanks for that, Giuseppe. Thanks for that piece of history there, which is brilliant. As I said, she is the saint that represents our community, and there is an Instagram account there. So if you are listening to the podcast, do slip over onto the Instagram account as well and check out a little bit more about the community. I think this leads us perfectly onto service leaders. Um, so I read this thing the other day that said Christians should bloom when they are planted, which I really liked the thought of, and I really enjoyed that sentiment of, even the planting can happen every time you wake up, and it's an opportunity to bloom. So in terms of service leader motivators, Lily, was there anybody that you could think of that could
Mm,
be your service leader motivator?
yeah, definitely. I think Mr. Andrew Walther is quite a big one for me because he's obviously the leader of the group, and I do often find him very moving and striking because he just put so much effort into all of our sessions. All through lockdown, we've been having Tuesday 8:30 till 9:30 sessions, and every week we have new ideas, and he keeps us on our toes all the time. And yeah, I think he's just really influential, and he really does, like, he gives us a light at the end of the tunnel that we can all reconnect on a Tuesday evening. And this isn't the first lockdown we've done either,
Mm,
as I'm sure all of you are aware. Like last summer, we
mm,
also did this Lectio throughout the last term, and I think it's just really eye-opening that we can all come back to each other in the end, and no matter where we are in the world, we can all rejoin.
mm.
Yeah, I think it's a really important thing to do, just everyone connecting. And yeah.
Thanks, Lily. I think that's a very special sentiment to be shared there, and I think it. You know, if I could speak on behalf of Mr. Andrew Orfer there, I think he would definitely say that everything that you've said about him, he would say right back to all of you guys who do attend those meetings for the community and continue to do your work with for the community and with the community. It's a huge motivator. It's a huge driver for what's going on within the school at the moment. And yeah, well, I think we're all, as you said earlier, Lily, the element of community, I think, is drawing, everybody closer, but also driving people forward to seeing that there is going there. I well, I hope, but there will be an end, and we'll all come out of it a lot stronger and hopefully a lot closer to our faith. Let's hope. Okay, Judetta, do you have anybody there that could match or even better Mr. Andrew Orfer?
I would say that Mother Teresa is definitely the perfect example of service,
Yeah.
as as she really, like, I think what's most interesting about her is that she did service in really simple ways. So she didn't exactly do things that required a great amount of time, effort, or money, even. She just really did it simply and humbly as well, which
Mm,
I find really inspiring.
mm. That is inspiring. I think that's a great reminder, actually, that you know to become something, in the eyes of looking towards Saint Teresa, perhaps, and in the eyes of a young Catholic, it might be daunting or scary to look at saints and to go, oh my word, well, look at what they devoted to their faith. How is that how is that comparing? How on earth can I compare what I'm doing to them? And um, I think the message there would be to don't compare your faith to somebody else's. As we said about service, it's completely unique, it's completely personal to you. But those simple missions every single day, which I am a firm believer in, and I absolutely love them that they exist. The smiling to a fellow dog walker, even though they may not smile back at you. Then, which unfortunately happens to me quite a lot, they may go back home and say to somebody, "Oh, this person smiled at me," and it might be a little bit odd, but you may have played your part there. You honestly don't know the impact that you can have on other people. You don't know the impact that you can have on communities. We cannot know what impact this is having. Us speaking on the podcast, we don't know the impact that we might be having. To people. So us continuing our work, continuing our mini missions as young Catholics, young Christians, is really, really important, and a huge part of what the community represents. Because Lily, you said earlier about your starfish boxes. to somebody listening to that, they might not fully understand the impact of what a starfish box can have, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that was Lily. Did you actually going back to that quickly? Did you have any? Did you think about the, the way that you marketed the opportunity to take part in the starfish boxes? Did you find that it was kind of difficult to motivate the community into taking part on this, or was it relatively easy? What did you find?
No, I think it was relatively easy because everyone wants to give something, especially if they can, and relatively they were quite easy things to give, and the school as a whole definitely took the challenge, and in the end we got a very large amount of boxes, and
Mm,
I think it really did just, it sounds very cliche, but change people's lives at Christmas because it just gives them that little symbol of hope, and
mm,
quite often the case like that is enough, that
yeah,
little thing. And so yeah, definitely.
100%. It's the I yeah, I think it's a great idea. And it was a great initiative, and I think it's a perfect example um, of what can be done. And people will take you by surprise as well. In offering up, which is great. So moving on to kind of what Lily was saying there relates to the power of service and how service can offer such hope, as you said there as well, Lily, about the work within the community, and it relates perfectly to a question that I raised to the girls in how has the St Teresa community brought you closer to service, and Judetta, who is joining us today, in the past week embarked on a project that was extremely successful, and it was a project that was for the whole school. And Giuseppe is going to talk us through a little bit about what she did and what went into that and what she learned from it. But a huge shout out to Giuseppe actually, because she was confident enough, to speak about her faith, speak about the way that the community has motivated her, has impacted her, and challenged her in front of the whole school at a hymn practice, online during lockdown. Perhaps when it might be even more difficult to gain people's ears and people's attentions, but it was hugely successful, and the words were taken on by the whole of the school. So, Judessa, would you like to read a little passage from what you had there, just to give the listeners a little bit of an insight into what you were talking about?
Yes, okay. So often we become too indulged within our own daily routines, which leads towards indifference, a lack of concern for others. However, we can overcome this obstacle through assisting others by placing their best interests at heart before our own. St. Paul reminds us in Galatians chapter 5, verse 13, not to use your freedom as an opportunity for the flesh, but through love to serve one another.
Amazing. Thank you, Giuseppe. That was something that, well, a tiny snippet of what was said in Giuseppe's speech there in front of the whole school. But I thought it was a verse that related really, really well to the topic of the month of service on this episode today. So I guess a way to kick this off, Giuseppe. Um, why did you volunteer to do this? What kind of motivated you to do that?
Well, I believe that service is such an important aspect within our daily lives and can genuinely really make a positive difference within our society. So I really wanted to encourage and motivate other people to recognize the true value of it. And I really wanted to help make a difference within the community and to just share my thoughts about service and hopefully making other people realize how service can really allow us to share our gifts and to just bring happiness and more joy within our lives, especially during COVID. So
Mm.
I really, yeah, that's
I,
my.
I think it definitely did that, Judessa, and I think you should be very, very proud of um, of taking that opportunity to share your voice, and you're doing it again today, alongside Lily, which is absolutely brilliant. So you offered a voice on how on what you hoped to gain from volunteering there. But is there anything on the other side of that now? You've done it. You prepared it. You spoke your words, and now you've had a little bit of time to reflect. From that reflection, do you feel like you have experienced anything different to what you might have before? How did sharing your voice in front of the whole school impact you?
Um, well, as it was quite challenging, it definitely gave me a lot more confidence, but also allowed me to realize how interacting with others can genuinely make a difference. And it sort of inspired me to do more within the school to really help out and to really motivate more people towards creating acts of service generally.
Mm. No, I think it's utterly brilliant. That the community of both St Teresa and the school um, is offering that opportunity for young people to raise their voice and to share their voice. And I think honestly our community is very good at that. I think there are lots of events that do occur that do allow us to be able to do that. So thank you once again on behalf of the St Teresa community for volunteering with that. And perhaps we might. How about this? Perhaps we might put the draft of your speech up on the Instagram page, if people want to view it. That might be a cool idea to share your voice even further. So do keep an eye out for that. Okay, so moving. Well, Judith has done it herself. There, she's moved us into the topic of the House Month of Service that we are talking about in this episode. Another initiative produced by the St Teresa Community, and each year the school aims to have the month of service, in which we as the school focus on being the hands and feet of Christ to one another and to our wider community. So all of the St Teresa Community members from each house will be responsible for the one act of service, and we'll be working together as a community to help each other with different ideas of service that can occur within the houses. So within our meetings on Tuesday, we did kind of discuss this, and our two guests today, Giuseppe and Lily, are from the same house at school, which, if you have any listeners from your house, they will be excited to hear what's going to be going on. So no pressure at all. But Lily and Judessa, let's go to Lily. Is there anything, Lily? Do you want to give us something that you hope to gain from this experience of month of service?
I hope to gain probably perseverance and determination, because I think it will still be hard to do it because we're obviously remote at the moment. So I think being determined is definitely a big factor.
Mm.
And so, yeah, and I think courage as well. It would be really good because you can, with having courage yourself, you can encourage others and inspire them. And even if you don't think that you are inspiring them, perhaps you are, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, yeah. No, completely. As I said, we talk about a lot today. Most of the time, you don't even know the impact you're having
Yeah, definitely.
on your community, which is great. And Judessa, do you want to give the listeners a little bit of insight into perhaps what your house will be doing within your month of service?
Yeah, so over this month, we're basically thinking of general acts that we can do for the community to really reinforce a sense of service. So one of the ideas that I had was writing letters for the elderly, which I think will really create a greater sense of community and allow us to bring a sense of joy and comfort towards them.
Mm. And a sense of hope, which I think ties into perfectly what we did over Christmas again in terms of the messages of hope that we produced, for the homeless in Bath, which was another great project. And I think a lot of I'm really happy that you mentioned courage there, Lily, because that does tie into our previous episode. So courage and hope, I think, there is running a little bit dry at the moment for a lot of people. But in terms of perhaps hearing your voices, hearing what's going to be happening within the months of service, will offer a lot of people courage and hope. So the other houses who are listening, the pressure is on. Do make sure that if you are listening and you go to Downside School and you are part of a house, make sure you contact your St Teresa Community representative and pester them along to find out what your house motivation for the months of service will be. Alrighty, well, we have covered quite a lot there within this episode, and as I did say at the start, it is our last episode before we go off on a week of half term, a well-earned week where everybody must be taking a rest. They must be stopping. They must be given the opportunity to reflect, which I'm sure they will. But from me, on behalf of the St Teresa community, thank you so much to Lily and to Judetta today for joining me. Genuinely, it was great to listen to your thoughts, to hear your voices, and I am sure that the people who are listening, wherever they are taking in your words and seeing the hope, seeing the courage, and looking forward to the results of the month of service that is upcoming. So thank you, girls. Have a great half term. And to the people listening, thanks again for listening. And yeah, genuinely, I don't think we fully thought it would get to this point where we're 4 episodes down the line, and a whole bunch of the community have already featured on this podcast, which is absolutely brilliant. The podcast has reached many places in the world. It's Nigeria, Spain, Poland, the US, UK, Ireland, Wales, Italy. It's really great to see that not just the school community but the wider community is listening to the voices of our community, and we hope that it is bringing you some form of joy, some form of faith and hope. And after half term, we will be continuing this podcast recorded from various locations, all live. And yeah, we hope that you do join us again after half term and have a great break, and we will speak to you soon. We are going to be finishing this week with another little bit of music from We the Kingdom with God So Loved. God bless.